I'm Nadine. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe to my channel to be notified of future videos. Today I would like to show you how you can make an awesome bread and butter pudding, and actually something you make from what you have in your house. I decided to do this recipe because it tastes nice, and I have some stale croissants here, so instead of throwing them away or getting them to waste, I'm going to make a beautiful bread and butter pudding with this. So for this we're going to need 8 croissants or 9 croissants. We're going to use a little bit of white chocolate, one of my favorites, and some dark chocolate. If you don't have white and dark, you can use any milk chocolate, any chocolate you like, you can use for this. We're going to need as well some unsalted butter. Salted butter could be a little bit too salty, it is a dessert, so I prefer to cook with unsalted butter. We're using some sugar. This one is Castor Sugar, so this sugar is a little bit finer. It works better in the baking, but normal sugar would do the trick as well. And some fresh cream. So that's just a very big bottle. Alright, so I think we should start. And before I forget, obviously we're going to need some eggs. First I have my chocolate to cut, which is quite a bit, and we're going to need quite a lot of chocolate for my croissants. So that is a little bit hard work to chop, as you can see. But you can buy them as well in smaller places. So it's always good to start first with your chocolate, because while your chocolate is melting, we can use that time and actually cut up our croissants. Alright, so this is quite hard, and you can see my hand is sore as well because it's a little cold here. So we're going to use this and add it into a metal bowl, because we want to melt it over a water pot. So this is called a water bath. So the chocolate will melt over the water, because you don't want to put it directly on the heat. Okay, so that's very important. The bowl doesn't touch the water, and we prepare our water bath. So it needs to be snug, so obviously you don't burn your fingers. So that bowl, first when you weigh something out, you need to make sure your bowl is on Tara. Often people, they forget that the bowl weighs something as well. So it needs to be on Tara before you add your chocolate. So I'm going to add 60 grams of white chocolate. Ooh, I cut it too much, but that's no problem. I'm sure I can still use it for something else. And a big block of chocolate is not going to work nicely, so it's always better to have it finely chopped. It will melt much better. Okay, and now I'm going to cut my dark chocolate. The smaller the pieces, the better. Okay, and I think I can put my chocolate bowl back on, and I make sure it's on Tara again. And we're going to need 210 grams. I had a little bit of cut chocolate, so we can just use this as well. That's a little bit too much. So with the baking, you should be quite accurate. So if something is 5 grams out, that's okay. But if something is like 20-30 grams out, that's not okay. Then it will have a big impact on the end, so you can't really make it a nice dish. Alright, so I have my chocolate weighed out correctly. I'm going to switch this onto the stove now. And I'm going to put this on high heat, and I put my bowl now over my water bath. If I see at any point steam coming up the sides of the pot, then I need to switch off my pot so that the heat is not too hot for this chocolate. So we're just going to leave this now here and let it melt and stir occasionally in between. Okay, so this is a plastic spatula. So this is always good if you need to stir your chocolate in between, and we're just going to leave this to stir now. Okay, so then I need butter. I need 90 grams of butter. The unsalted butter, as I showed you earlier, I have already weighed this out. So I'm going to add my unsalted butter also to my chocolate. and I let it melt together. This is cream, 450 milliliters. So this we're going to add as well to our butter chocolate mixture, and it will melt all together. So you see, this is a very easy recipe where you don't need a lot of skills to, and it becomes very, very delicious at the end. Okay, and then I'm going to need as well to add my sugar. So the sugar, weigh it out. This one is 120 grams, so it's not a lot of sugar. So if you don't like too much sugar, you can use less sugar, or you could leave it out, or you could even substitute it with a little bit of honey. So for 120 grams sugar, I would maybe use only 90 milliliters of honey. Right, so I'm just going to leave this on the side, and I have to just prepare my eggs now and break them in a different dish. So we're going to add our chocolate mixture later on in our eggs. So eggs is something you don't want to heat up in a bowl, because it just could become a scrambled egg, and that's what you definitely don't want. Right, so I'm just going to leave this for later, nicely prepared. And we're going to go over to our croissants and preparing them. So you could use as well scones or just white bread, anything of what you like. Like I discovered this, I had once croissants left over, and I decided to make this, and it became a favorite from my friends and my family, so I made it quite a couple of times. So a bread knife is the best to use it. Slice it maybe in an angle so you have a wider, bigger piece, and you're just going to cut it more or less like a small finger thick. Okay. So you could even, like, if you feel like making this, go to this shop at the end of the day or the next day and buy the leftovers from the day before, so you will get it as a bargain. Just gonna move this here, it's a little bit in the way. You can make that recipe as well with a little bit of vanilla or cinnamon or any other flavor of what you like. It doesn't have to be exactly like I show you, so you can always be creative and add any kind of flavors. And your flavors you would add in your milk and cream mixture. So while I've cutted this is starting to heat, and I'm just going to stir this now. It's not quite there yet, so it needs a little longer, but it will get there. So you see, that's why you're starting it a little earlier. I want to keep mine relatively plain. I'm just going to add a little bit of vanilla. You can use vanilla essence, the simple one which you can get in the shop. I'm going to use some vanilla paste, which means if I open this now, you can maybe see in here, it's the vanilla pot. It's been the pot taken out, and it's just more natural, and it gives you really beautiful vanilla flavor. If you get a vanilla pot, you can cut it out. Unfortunately, I can't show you when I don't have one, but you slit it out and you scrape the vanilla out. I love using this. I'm sure you can get it at any bakery, grocery store. And I'm going to leave this a little longer. Okay, so this is still melting, and I have cut already my bread. I'm going to line this with some baking paper. If you put this straight into your tray, it will stick and you're going to struggle to get it out. So it's always better to have it in some baking paper so that you will get it out easily. And I prefer to have mine a little bit over the edge on both sides, so that will be easier if you need to lift it out and maybe want to cut it later on a cutting board. Right. Something what you can do as well with this recipe, and I find it actually works out even better, if you make that mixture and you let it soak overnight for the next day, and you only bake it the next day. So if you have a dinner function, you could do this the day before. Right, so then we're going to add all our bread in layers. So you can just start here, and in each layer you could, for example, add cinnamon sugar, raisins, whatever floats your boat to make it your own recipe. I'm going to be very plain, and I'm going to leave it just as it is. So you see, I'm trying to compact it as well. But when you add your mixture later on and you maybe have one part a little bit more, it will automatically move to where it needs to move. Okay, simple as this. And we're done with laying our tray. Okay, I can see the steam coming up now. So this is what I mentioned earlier. When the steam comes up, you don't want the extra heat. So you switch your pot off, even if it hasn't melted everything, the water will still melt all the rest in here, because that's why you're using a metal bowl. You can do a cheat version. I just would not suggest for anyone who hasn't really cooked with chocolate, but I do it sometimes if I'm under time pressure. And you can put this in a plastic bowl and put it into the microwave, like always for 30 seconds, stir it in between, and then again 30 seconds until everything is melted. But don't have the idea put it for 2-3 minutes in, because your chocolate will start burning. Okay, it's getting there. I think it's going to need another 2-3 minutes and then it should be all melted. I could have maybe cut my chocolate smaller, then it would have gone faster. But that's me, I'm an impatient person. Everything needs to be fast and furious, like the Germans are. And you can feel the chocolate is creating a little bit of resistance, like if you would make a ganache, and that's when you know your chocolate is almost melted. So it's like this funny feeling of resistance when you're stirring it. Okay, so at that point I know it is almost done. I don't have any extra heat, so this is enough heat. So I'm gonna start mixing my eggs. So I have my 3 broken eggs. They are cold and my mixture is hot. So if you have hot and cold, you always have to be very careful, because otherwise you're going to create scrambled eggs. So you don't need to whisk this very fluffy. I just wanted to break the egg white and the egg yellow nicely. I prefer for baking older eggs. These ones are very fresh, because the egg white is more loose and it works better if you bake. A lot of people always think, oh no, for baking the freshest egg. It's actually not true. So I would rather use fresh eggs for my breakfast, and a week-old egg is perfect for baking, and room temperature is always better as well than 2 cold eggs. Alright, my chocolate has completely melted now, so you can see, even if it shows a little bit of pieces, if I'm going with my whisk in, it will become nice and smooth now. Okay, so what I mentioned earlier with cold and hot. You cannot add a cold egg into something hot. If you do that, it will start scrambling. So you have to first temper it a little bit. So in tempering, you add the hot liquid to the cold, and you don't add all of it, you just add a little bit. Okay, this is going to fall, so we're going to put this here. A little bit and stirring this in. You don't want to whisk it too much. So this will basically heat up the egg a little bit and making it to more room temperature. So you're adding a little bit more. Okay, so I'm using plus minus 1/3 into my egg. So now this has warmed up a little bit. And now I can use this mixture and add it into my hot mixture. And you know what? I'm gonna come back now. This bowl is dancing and I don't like that. So I'm gonna grab a cloth, moist or dry, and it will hold if you don't have someone to help you. And now you're adding your egg mixture into here, and you can see now everything is nice and smooth. So you don't want to mix it to create air, so you can whisk, which is this for air, and this one you just want to stir to combine it. And you don't want to waste anything. You're going to use all of it. Okay. And now we're going to pour this over here. So you go a little bit over each side, and the bread, or in this case the croissant, will absorb. And then you can go over a second and a third time. That smells so good. I would actually love to eat this bowl just as it is. Okay, so I'm just pushing this bread a little bit down so it can absorb all the chocolate mixture. I'm quite into the whole vegan things. I haven't tried it as a vegan, but I'm sure this would be possible. I would maybe just change the cream to coconut milk and use a dark chocolate which hasn't got any dairy in. And instead of egg, you can use flaxseed as a substitute, which you mix with a little bit of water. And obviously butter you can change to coconut fat, and you can almost make everything vegan. Ideally is you could let it stand for a few hours. I'm gonna bake mine now. So I'm gonna switch that oven on, and in that 15 minutes what the oven is heating, this can rest, and then we will bake it for half an hour. And it should become nice and compact. Okay, we're going to put this now into the oven, and the best is for chocolate 170 degrees. Some recipes say 180. If I bake with chocolate, nothing higher than 170 degrees, between 150 170. And ideal is if you have an oven which has a fan, because it swirls the air around and it makes the cake bake more evenly. So we're going to switch the oven on, and it takes 15 minutes to heat the oven, and it has time for 15 minutes to stand. So 170 at 170 degrees on a fan. Fan. And 170. So you can see, unfortunately I have no lights in there. So now I have half an hour until my bread and butter pudding is baking, and I have enough time to clean up my kitchen, because then you have it ready and your kitchen is ready. Okay, let's check. Toothpick. I can still see it's a little bit running. I think it can still go. So the moment you smell, you should leave it always. You always should check if it is okay or not. So I was smelling some chocolate strong flavor, so that's why I decided to check. But it does need a few more minutes. You looks nice. And it's nice, it's cooked and it's nice and chewy, so a little bit of chocolate, that is lovely. And you can see steam is coming up. I forgot to mention, if you are a really chocolate lover, what you could do, have some chocolate pieces chopped up and you could sprinkle them in between. So if you eat it, you have these chunks of chocolate. So this you could do as well. But I just stick with the plain recipe. So now the baking paper, as I mentioned earlier, we want to have flapping over. So now this will help that you can lift it out. So if this is, you want to eat it very quickly, you can let it cool down much quicker just as it is, and it helps with the washing up. Okay, my bread and butter pudding is finished, as you can see here. And I think it looks very good. And I'm going to portion it. It's still warm, so it's a bit more difficult to cut, so you could serve this just and everyone can tuck in, but I love to plate my things a little bit more pretty. So that's what we're going to do now. And I'm going to put this onto our little pretty plate here. You can serve this with ice cream, or with fresh cream or vanilla sauce. I'm just going to put a few raspberries on and give it a little dusting. Put some icing sugar. And here I have a little bit of fresh lemon balbima, similar to mint. I just find it smells so much nicer. And I'm going to put it here so it just looks pretty. and ready, and it can be served and enjoyed. Or maybe that way. Thank you so much for watching this video. It really means a lot to me. Please let me know in the comments below how this recipe worked out for you. If you have any suggestions, please leave me a comment below, or anything what you would like to see in the future. I'm happy to do this for you. Please like this video